Hey, and welcome to Be the Bridge. I'm your host, Brian Peyton Joyner. From the time I was 11, I tried to pray away the gay. But my senior year in college, I realized I could pray and be gay. Each week, I'll share my experiences and chat with others as we build a bridge between the LGBT community and people of faith. Thanks for joining, and let the construction begin. Hello, fellow bridge builders. Thank y'all for joining me today for this 28th episode of Be the Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Brian Peyton Joyner, author of the novel The Wisdom of Stones. The novel's about Ben, a college senior, who promised God and his meemaw he'd be a Southern Baptist preacher, but he can't pray away the gay. The novel is loosely based on my own attempts to reconcile my sexuality with my Southern Baptist upbringing. So many people in the LGBTQIA+ community have similar stories, and it's not just those in the Christian faith. My guest today is Ibrahim Kumara. Ibrahim was born in Kuwait, and then his family moved to Tennessee. But growing up, his Muslim faith was always important to him. But at some point, he realized that he was gay, and he had to try and figure out what to do. Ibrahim, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you as well. I've talked to Jazz and I've talked to Maze, two of your close friends there in Denver. It's nice to complete the holy trinity of folks there. I want to ask you the question I ask all my guests, and I think it's because I grew up in South Carolina, and that's just the question that was asked when you met someone for the first time. So where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
So originally I was born in Kuwait, along with most of my family, but I was raised in Tennessee. So I was in the South with you.
Yes.
I was, yeah, right? Almost like a different world compared to the West.
So were you raised very religious? Did your parents come from a religious background?
Yes, for sure. So my mother is from Kuwait, but my father was from Alabama. He was in the U.S. military. When he met my mother, he converted to Islam because most of my family from generations are strict Muslims, but not extremists, because there's a slightly huge difference. And I'm sure you know, but I'm just like,
right.
To whoever's listening, just so you know, there's a difference. With my family, and most families, you're born into it. So I was born into the strict Islamic world.
What was your father's religious background before he converted?
Honestly, I'm not too sure. The relationship with my father is I'm just going to be honest, it's really bad and almost non-existent. A lot of stuff happened, so I don't keep in contact with him.
Okay. Was he around when you were a kid or no?
Unfortunately, yes.
When did you first realize that you were attracted to other guys?
Oh my goodness. There's lots of instances. So I'm going to say it was when I hit puberty. This is going to be super explicit, but when I get sexually aroused in puberty, it happens in the 8th grade. It was when I was shopping to go get some underwear. And I was with my mom. So we went to the market, well, Walmart specifically. And I was getting my big boy underwears, and there were the models. And I said, "Mom, leave. I can handle it myself." And I just when she left, I just looked at the models. It's oh my goodness. Yeah. So I think that's the first thing that hit me. I'm it's pretty common, but it's a precious memory.
So when you were growing up, were you raised in a really religious setting? Did you go to the mosque? Did you have studies of the Quran? What was your religious background like as a kid?
So as a kid, we would go to the mosque occasionally, especially on Fridays whenever we could. So whenever I was in school, we'd go to Friday prayer. And then especially during Ramadan, we're there every night to pray Isha and extra prayers there. It was pretty normal, but studying the Quran really wasn't a thing we did in my household, because usually the parents, especially the father, will teach you the Quran, explain everything, all the hadiths, everything that comes with the religion. But my father wasn't the idealistic father, so he really wasn't. He was in my life, he was present, but he wasn't really in it. And my mother tried her best. Poor thing, I love her so much. But she was the single breadwinner of the home. She's the only one who was earning income, bringing in the income. So, and she was a nurse, so, and working overtime. So the time she was at home, she was asleep. We really didn't have the teaching of the Quran a lot at our household.
Was part of that because your father wasn't that familiar with it and didn't grow up with it? Did he just convert to Islam out of convenience or necessity in order to marry your mother?
I think it's out of convenience for him, honestly, because even till this day, he still uses the religion to basically excuse all the bad things he's done in his life, really. So it's basically a comforting system for him.
So when you were a kid, was there a time that you really enjoyed going to mosque? And was there any ceremony or any mystery of Islam that connected with you where you felt especially close to Allah?
The moments where I feel close to the religion, especially as a kid, was during Ramadan. When we'd go to the masjid, like almost 24/7, we would eat with different families from different backgrounds, have conversations like we knew each other for years, and we just probably just met them. During Ramadan, I love it so much because I never feel closer to my family and to other Muslims and to other people. I love to party. I love to celebrate anything. So it's just like a huge celebration. Everyone's happy. I remember in Memphis when we had our Eid like 3 years ago, these men from Yemen did this cultural dance with the swords, and it was just so gorgeous, and I loved it. So it's just this huge celebration. Everyone's happy. It just makes me glad to say, like, proud to say I'm a Muslim for those moments in my life.
I think that's one thing that people lose out on, or they don't appreciate the importance of religion and your church as a community.
Exactly.
We see religion as just a system of beliefs and then a system of rules, and then you have the people in your church are the ones who are judging you. And it's not this bringing people with a shared cultural background and connectedness into a place where they can find community and they can find family beyond just their blood relatives.
Yeah, exactly. The community is just so gorgeous and so beautiful.
So when you're around your Muslim community there in Tennessee, were you out at all? Did people know that you're gay? Did people suspect?
Shockingly, no, because the people who know me now can't imagine me closeted because I'm like super homo. Even when I walk and speak. But yeah, back then for sure no one knew. As soon as I found out, I kept it to myself. I started being closed off. It was wrong. That's what I was told. That's what I learned. And I started to basically pray the gay away.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. When you say you found out, it sounds like you got an owl delivered a letter and said, "Congratulations, it's time to enroll at Hogwarts." But how did you sort of find out? Was that the underwear shopping trip, or how was it that you sort of found out your sexuality?
I wish an owl brought me a letter, but no, it was I basically like stared at the underwear models. I'm like, okay, am I the only one? Is this normal? Do other guys do this? I don't know. I didn't really do research or asked about it. One night, I just went on the internet on my phone and basically typed in male underwear models, and one thing led to another, and then I figured out, like, oh my goodness, what's happening? This is a huge, huge no-no, but I didn't really hate it, though. Like, I liked it, but I knew it was bad.
So you said you knew it was bad. What messages had you gotten about that, and where had those come from? Was it your parents? Was it your faith community? Was it friends at school?
Mostly the faith community, but also my parents too. It's like homosexuality is a subject that is not talked about, because in Islam, in most of religions, we don't like to talk about sex.
Right.
So yeah, like no, like sex is a no-no. Like,
yeah, Christianity is the same thing. It's like just say no, even to having the conversation is sort of the rule.
Yeah, exactly. Like don't talk about it. We're not going to talk about it. The only time you'll know is like the day before your marriage or whatever. I'm like, okay, so sex is a no-no. So if we're going to talk about homosexuality, they're going to want to talk about it sexually. So on Jummah prayer, we have the leader of the masjid, the imam, and he talks about any religious story or religious topic he wants to. And then one of the days, I came in when I was like younger, before I even questioned my sexuality was about homosexuality and how big of a sin it was. So that stuck with me.
Because you have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Quran, right?
Yeah.
And that's believed, even though Lot wasn't the one who sinned, it's believed in Islam to be sort of the sin of Lot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, literally, like the whole village was stoned. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want like a brick flying from the heavens and hit me. From the family aspects, like whenever you hear anything on the news going around the LGBT community, or even like when comedians play around and for a joke would act gay or like kiss another guy, basically, like, and I was watching with my family, I could see the disgust on my parents' faces, you know.
So as a kid, what was your relationship with Islam and more specifically with Allah? Was this something where you felt like you had a personal connection and relationship with the divine?
For sure. So when I was younger, I was like the closest I ever could be until like I hit, I would say 11. No, I'd say 10. But yeah, that's one of the closest I ever felt because it was just a good time in my life with my family and with everything going on. So I was pretty happy and I was very thankful. So whenever I prayed, I was always basically thanking God for my life I had and very appreciative and all that stuff. So that's when I felt the closest. When stuff started happening that was out of my control and there's nothing I could do about it, that's when my faith started to decline.
Right. So what language, what concepts did you have at that age to attach to your feelings?
I really did not think about it because, like, my coming of age story, I'm going to call it that. So, my coming of age story was very lustful. It was very sexual for me. So, as soon as I found out, like, not only am I, like, possibly gay, but I am a very sexual person and we're not supposed to be like that. So, I kind of just ignored it and, like, tried to go back to religion because like during that time, like for a brief moment since I was 10, I kind of stopped for a minute for like 2 years, maybe 3. And I thought this was like almost a punishment for that. So I tried to go back to religion.
Did you overcompensate then in that regard? Well, if you were being afflicted by this because you weren't a good Muslim, then did you all of a sudden try to be the best Muslim ever? No?
No, not really. No, not really. I tried to be like average Muslim, not like,
Okay.
Like the best one ever.
So you said you tried to pray away the gay. What did that consist of?
So we have 5 prayers that are said at different times of the day. Like the first prayer is like sunset. So I was doing my prayers, and after I finished my prayers, I would ask for forgiveness from God, and then ask Him to basically fix me, make me normal again. And obviously that doesn't work. And I'm just like now thinking about it, I'm pretty sure that made me even gayer. That didn't work. I'm like stressing over it. So now I'm like at this next step of I can't fix this. This is who I am. Either I can like live my life miserably and be a good Muslim, or I can be gay, but I will have to sacrifice my family and my future afterlife.
Did you have strong signals from your mother, from your relatives, that this was not something that they could ever accept and you would be kicked out of the house?
I didn't talk to anyone, but I did like a lot of research. So I'd go on my phone, look up coming out stories of queer Muslims, and it was just about them basically getting disowned and getting kicked out. And I was like, I'm like 15 or 16, like, where am I going to go? I need my family right now. So I basically said, okay, I'm just going to keep this to myself. No one will know. I will fake the part.
But you knew at that moment that you were done, that there was no praying away the gay, and that at some point you would have to come to terms with your sexuality.
Yeah. So like at that time when I turned like 17, that's when I officially like accepted this is me. Like there's nothing I can do about it. But when I accepted myself, like my sexuality, I also accepted there is a possibility of me going to hell for this. It didn't take long for me to accept that. It took like 3 months. I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure like I'm somewhat of a good person. And if I'm going to go basically to the hellfire and suffer the punishment of the grave for my sexuality, whatever, that's that. But I'm going to be happy in this life, not miserable.
What were the teachings in your faith community about the afterlife and who got to go up and who was sent down?
Oh, goodness. The imam was very descriptive of how the hellfire is like. So I'm pretty sure there's like levels. This is from what I remember. So there's levels of hell. Um, so at the bottom, I think that's where it burns the hottest. And then on top, that's where it burns the lightest, but it's like still pretty hot. So it depends on how sinful you are, depends on what level you are. And then it's like hellfire is described like the time being there is like one day seems like a year. So imagine an eternity. I'm like, okay, that's very, very gross. So I'm like, yeah, I was like, but heaven, of course, we call it paradise. And boy, does it sound like it. So it's like, I asked my mom this all the time when I was younger. And I still remember because like I was laying down on her lap and I was like, please describe paradise to me. And she would say like, basically there's 3 rivers, I believe, one of milk, one of water, and one of honey. And I was like, okay, that's not great for me because I don't like milk or I don't like honey. You know, I'm just like, but I can settle for water. That's cool. I'm pretty sure we can like, I can have a conversation with God and we can like, you know, make sure I'm very accommodated for. So I was like, all right. So I remember there's this one thing like, if you're hungry and there's like this tree and there's a bird right there and you want like basically chicken, bam, it's on your plate right there. And then as soon as you finish eating it, the chicken is just going to walk by. So it's not like you're actually killing it or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a Star Trek replicator.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, okay, that's cool. I'm glad I kind of like, it's bad that I don't feel guilty over eating chicken now. So I'm just like, I don't really think that's going to be a huge, I mean, it's nice, I guess, if I'm there. And then I asked her about housing. I was like, so how are the houses?
Is it 5-star accommodations with room service? Because I must know.
Yeah, exactly. I was super picky. I'm just like, I was super picky. So I'm like, what's housing like? And she says, because like I really wanted to live in a castle because I was like, super interested in Versailles. So I was like, I want to live in Versailles, just me by myself. I was like, Mom, you could visit me. And it's like, yeah, you'd have a castle, you'd have anything you want. I'm like, okay, that is for me. Sign me up. I want to book a reservation. I'd love to go there. Like one thing that I guess is bad to shows like I'm not really like I guess a good practicing Muslim is that I asked her like would we still have to pray even if we're in paradise? And she said yes, for sure. I was like, oh, like yeah, it was really bad. I was like, ugh, this is like such a chore doing it already, and I'm supposed to do it for eternity. I'm like, I'm there. Like, doesn't God like know He's amazing and great? Like, can I stop? But yeah, so that's what paradise is like. And I was like, okay, that's definitely for me. I want to go there. I do not want to burn for eternity.
But when you made that decision at the end of those 3 months to put your immortal soul at risk, did you feel like you were giving up a lot, or had you sort of grown past any belief that either place was real?
During the 3 months, I did like heavy research. Like I was reading through the Quran to see the consequences, basically. So not only are you going to be in hellfire, like after Judgment Day, until you wait for Judgment Day, you'll either be blessed with the grave or you'll be suffering in the grave. So you'll have consequences in the grave until Judgment Day, and then you burn. This seems a lot more bearable than me being miserable right now.
What's the Muslim view on who gets to paradise versus who suffers in hell?
If you believe in God, the messenger, and the holy book, you'll be asked this either, I think, when you die or on the day of judgment. And then after that, depends on who goes to heaven and hell. It's going to be like on God, because He's the only one who judges. And it says in the Quran that He is the only one who can judge us, not each other.
So what have you held on to? What is most important to you in your Muslim faith?
The community.
But how is that, though? Is the community accepting it all?
Oh, for sure not.
Okay.
No. Oh, no. I didn't have the greatest experiences in the community either, even like as a straight acting guy there. But, I still enjoy the good moments, like the good moments I had in the community. They just overshine all the bad things that happen. That's the one thing that I love about it. But it's also one of the things that makes it even harder to be gay and Muslim. When I came out at 19, I came out to my mother. One of the things that I was worried about when, like, in generally, like, the coming out process, like, I was picking who am I coming out to? Because I'm not going to tell my family, extended family in Kuwait. I basically stopped having contact with them. If I come out to them, I can handle their judgment. I can handle anything they throw at me. But it'll also affect my brother, my sister, my mother, who still have contact with them and who still loves them a lot. And same thing with the community. They will, like, everyone will treat my mother badly for me being gay. And I'm not going to have her suffer the consequences of accepting me, the long process of accepting me or having me or still treating me as her son.
So what was her reaction? How did you go about telling her? Did you sit her down? Did you email, text, letter?
I know I told her in person, which was like so hard because like I told my friends, my sister, my brother in text, and the hardest person was ever going to come out to, I told her in person. Like now I can think about it, I'm just like, wow, good for you. Face your fears head on, but you dealt with the consequences. But so originally, like, I don't think she knew too much about it. So the things she was saying was like very hurtful. And basically, like, she saw it as an illness, like there was something really, really wrong with me. She didn't know too much about it. Like she thought like only people with hermaphroditic traits could only be gay or lesbian, and that just showed how much like she doesn't know. But I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna hold it against her because like where her background is. So I'm just like, it's not really talked about in Kuwait or Senegal. So I'm just like, okay, that's perfectly fine. I will deal with this. And whenever you're ready to talk, we'll talk about it. But it was just me for like a good 6 months dealing with a lot of slurs, yelling, and then arguments and all that stuff. I was basically like held under a microscope for 6 months.
What language did you use when you told your mother? Did you say you were attracted to guys? Did you say you were gay?
Oh, I told her I was gay. Yeah, I told her I was gay. She asked like if I ever got like physically intimate with a guy, and I was like, I'm not gonna come to like I have like numerous of times, but I'm not gonna tell her. Like I wasn't trying to kill her at that moment, so I just lied and said, no, I'm, I'm a virgin. I'm innocent. I don't know anything about that.
Did she ask you if you'd ever been intimate with a girl?
She didn't say that, but she said like, how would you know if you never had sex?
I thought that was a huge irony when I came out to my parents is we were taught abstinence, premarital sex is a sin.
Yeah.
But the second that I said I'm gay, they're like, well, you and your girlfriend are having sex, right? I'm like, no. They're like, well, you need to have sex. I'm like, we're not married. They're like, okay, don't worry about it. Just have sex because you might like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I never even had a girlfriend. Like I make a joke saying like I'm platinum star gay. Because like I never had sex with a girl. I've never dated a girl, and like I was a cesarean, so platinum star. Like I didn't even come out of the JJ, so I was like, platinum. I'm better than gold. I'm platinum. But yeah, she never really like tried to force me because like first off, you can't force me. Like I'm almost 18. No, I was 19. I'm like that's not gonna happen. That's not for me. Like already had my sexual experiences with guys, and like okay, I liked it. Like that's for me.
So, Ibrahim, how did you go from being very reserved about your sexuality to becoming a leader on campus there in the queer interfaith community?
Two of my best friends, I call them my fiancés, and I forced them to propose to me. You already interviewed them, Mace and Jazz. So yeah, I had to force them in text. Like, when are you gonna wife me up? Like, I'm gonna be taken soon. I'm not gonna be in the market too long. I want to make sure you have the opportunity to, lock this down. Yeah, I remember the day I met Jazz is when she created the LGBTQ interfaith group on campus. This was in September 21st. Back then, like I used to be like super shy and conservative, and well, not politically conservative, but like reserved. Like didn't want to talk to anybody, very introverted. And then like now I'm like doing things I never thought I would be. I still like to think I'm shy, but people tell me no. Um, yeah, sadly, I lost. That's not me anymore, which is a good thing, I guess.
Right. I don't think
Um,
it's sadly.
yeah, I'm like, I still
Feel
like to
lost for
think
the
I'm
world.
shy. Right, exactly. Like, I like to think I'm just like some introverted wanderer, like going, just wandering, going on adventures, just zoned out in their own space. But I'm not like that. I'm just like in people's faces, talking to random people, getting their phone numbers. So I'm just like, that is not me. But yeah, it was the day. That was the day I met Jazz, and I was the only open queer Muslim there in a room filled with a diversity of people who either came from a Christian background, but I was the only queer Muslim there. As I attended more meetings, I started to open up a little bit. Jazz, I think like in the third meeting, talked about "You Are Welcome" here. She talked about the planning committee, and I was like super interested. I'm like, okay, I want to do some work. I want to gain some visibility. I want to create a community for queer Muslims to basically prevent all the suffering and all the things I went through. So they have someone to fall back on when they go through it and they're not alone, like I was. After that, we had a focus group for the committee, and that's when Mace walked in the room. And I saw her name and I knew it was Arabic. I was like,
Right.
oh my goodness, like, who is this? Like, I started to, like, my heartbeat was going, like, increasing, and I was, like, breathing in really heavily. Yeah, and then she walked in, and then I was like, oh my goodness, like there's my unicorn. It's like it just hit me that like I'm not the only one because like I've been trying to get in contact with any other queer Muslim when I was going through this because like I wanted someone, I needed someone, and I could not get in contact with them. So as soon as Mace walked in that room, she sat right next to me, and I was just like, I looked at her, I was like, oh my god, like oh my god. I was just in awe. I was shocked. I was obsessed with her. I loved her. But the thing I was worried about, like I never told her, but she's gonna hear this now. It's like at first I was worried that like I liked her mainly because I liked the idea of her being gay and Muslim. But then like during the next meeting, as I got to know her, we had this like huge conversation, and then we talked about our experiences and like we sat across the table and then we looked at each other and then our eyes would open up because like that happened to me or like we can say that like we can bond over the similarities. That's when I was like, you know what, I don't know why I'm overthinking this. I love her because like we were just, it was fate for us to meet, and I just love everything about her, and I love everything about Jazz and all my other friends who helped me through this process.
Now, 2 days from now, you and Mace are leading a presentation, a seminar, a talk.
Yeah.
Called Queer Muslim Between Impossibility and Invisibility. What's that going to be like? What are you going to talk about?
Oh my goodness. So we just like met up to see what we're doing because we're mostly going to have, so I can talk to you about like how the discussion is going to be like. So it's going to be us talking about our experiences basically and having an open discussion with the audience to ask questions about anything. They basically just have an open conversation about it. I had midterms today and I was stressed all about it. So I really haven't. Yeah. So I'm like starting like after my last midterm exam, I'm going straight home and like writing down all my talking points and how to facilitate questions and all that fun stuff tonight with Mace over text.
Who do you expect as your audience? Do you think will there be another queer Muslim in the audience, or will it be people who are just wanting to better understand the particular struggles you've had to go through?
I feel like it's going to be people who don't know too much and want to learn more about it. I don't feel like we're going to have anyone who could basically use this discussion for themselves. I don't think we're going to have any queer Muslims there.
What about any other Muslims there?
I hope so. I really do. I hope we can, because like modern day Muslims are like, a lot of them are very modernized. Like they don't feel the same way as the elders do. So it'll be nice to have some allies or anybody who can like support us or just like somewhat agree. Because like when you repress sexuality from people, it's just not a good thing. It's a huge no-no, as I like to say. So I feel like there's going to be some people who might not be queer, but have to express themselves sexually, and that's a huge no-no in Islam. And that's one way we can, I guess, like find a group together who don't fit into that mold.
Right. I think that's the gift of the queer community to all faith communities. The traditional faith sexual ethic is not that workable in 21st century United States.
Yeah.
This notion that you will find a partner, that you will mate with that partner for life, is just not the reality of where we are. And a sexual ethic built on shaming everything about sex until that magical moment where you're married, and then all of a sudden it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It has failed miserably. People cannot wrap their head around how something can be horrible and awful and sinful and shameful, but then boom, all of a sudden it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, as long as you make a baby, then it's perfectly fine.
And as queer people in this country, one thing that we can do is to invite people to talk about what would be a sexual ethic that does have some values and some principles and some ethics behind it that could be based on passages from the Bible or the Quran or traditions of other faith. And that's one thing I've been really interested in looking at, is trying to figure out, okay, well, what would that look like to have a proper sexual ethic? And for this century, because I think we definitely realize that this notion of, well, as long as it's within marriage, it's okay. That's just not right. You can have marital rape. You can have all sorts of things going on where you don't have consent or mutuality in that relationship.
Yeah, but another point I'd like to say is, like, it's not a problem if it's just with guys compared to women, the whole double standard. Because I know a lot of Muslim men who, like, have had sex and will brag about it, not in front of their parents, but with their friends. It is perfectly okay. And that's like that's a thing. It's perfectly okay. But with women, it's a whole another issue. Like, you are a slut or a hoe or all that fun things. It's just a whole double standard. And it's not acceptable for women.
Yeah, virgins are whores.
Exactly.
What do you think that other queer Muslims can do to help the larger Muslim community here in the United States and even internationally try and be more affirming, welcoming, or just have some sort of a place for the LGBTQIA plus community?
One thing that, like, I've been doing ever since I got here and got in contact with Jazz and became confident and as me as a person, well, I became confident in me as a person. I've been, like, trying to find LGBT inclusive spaces in masjids. But that's just not a thing that's happening. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
In what? Sorry?
In Denver. Oh, no. So I've been trying to find LGBT inclusive mosques.
Oh, mosques. Okay, sorry.
In Denver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I use the term masjid, which is, like, basically the same thing.
Okay.
But yeah,
right.
mosques in Denver, and it's like not. Yeah, exactly. It's like not a thing. It's not gonna happen. Like, I will meet up with individuals who are okay with it, but as a community, it's a no-no. So what Mason and I are doing is we're creating our own community. So we are creating the first LGBTQ plus queer SWANA, which stands for Southwest Asian and Northern African Community. It's called Salam, which stands for peace in Arabic. What I really want this group to be is a group where all of us who feel like we don't fit into the mold of Islam can meet up. So I'm trying to make sure it's, like, as inclusive as it can be. And that's where we're kind of, like, we're not struggling with it, but it's kind of hard to gauge who's interested.
And the level of interest is challenging too, because
Exactly.
people are interested in a concept, but then if it involves any sort of work or sacrifice, then they will run from it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to, like, create this group where no one has to sacrifice anything. So, like, originally I set up the meeting at the LGBT Community Center in Denver, but then like legit no one showed up who could really benefit from this group. So I had to step back with Mace, and, like, I thought about it. I was like, okay, I had to think about my experiences. And when we had the genders and sexuality alliances in my high school, I wouldn't I'll try to stay far away from that as possible because I don't want people to associate anything about my sexuality or my homosexuality. I don't want people to know. I wouldn't risk it. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right. So now I have to like step back and think, okay, I need to disassociate myself with basically with the LGBT community for now and our interfaith community for now and create our own group in a location that's going to be basically almost anonymous.
I'm interested. When I was in college, a junior in college, I had struggled with my sexuality in a very significant way. I wasn't quite ready to be out, but I knew that what the church had done and what the Christian religious community was doing to the gay community was very damaging, and it was not yielding good fruit at all. I also knew that I couldn't have a gay Christian group or anything closely resembling that. But what I did was created an organization called Students for Diversity. And we picked some big issues of discrimination on the basis of race, discrimination on the basis of gender, discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or homophobia, and made it a broader, inclusive group where people could come and you wouldn't necessarily be labeled as a queer, if you show up at this, or gay if you showed up at this. And what I found, and this has been true historically through the Christian church for several hundred years, was the people who were against slavery, the people who were for the women's rights, who were for women's suffrage, who were for the civil rights movement, who, all of these groups who were at the forefront of all the civil rights, social progressive issues are the ones who were at the forefront of the LGBTQIA plus movement. You and I haven't discussed gender roles, but that's a huge issue in the Muslim community.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you see with regards to the role of women in Islam? Do you see that as an issue that you could piggyback on or work together towards broader objectives on updating Islam for the 21st century?
For sure, because I had this discussion with my mother in the car, in the locked car for some reason. Yeah, I was like, what am I doing? But of course, I like to instigate. So we had this conversation. I'm like, Mom, I don't understand why basically women are being treated this way in like different countries and primarily Islamic countries. Here, especially in our family, like we learn to basically empower women. We don't limit them or anything. So I basically asked her, like, why is it taught in Islam? And like she like shut me down. She was like, nope, you got that wrong. You got to restart. So she told me the difference. So honestly, like she said, Islam comes with a huge cultural aspect with it as well. But each country is going to have its own thing. So we can't really like tie it into the religion because it doesn't really like state that the treatment of women and what they can or can't do. Well, it says that a little bit, but not like to a crazy level. Gender roles are a very, very dominant thing in the culture, which ties into some religion aspects as well. But one thing, like, I hope with this group, with Salam and with Mace, with working with Mace, is to actually like destroy that. Because with this group, I really want to empower people who really don't have the voice. Because like I'm very privileged. Like I can do anything here, and it won't affect my family at all. They're 1,000 miles away, so anything that happens is going to happen to me. So I don't have that worry of them dealing with the consequences for my actions. Really, I have the privilege to actually do this and make this change and be a visible leader in this movement, and along with Mace too.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with me. What a great conversation we've had. I've absolutely enjoyed getting to know you better. And if folks wanted to get in contact with you, if any queer Muslims were listening from around the world, how might they get in touch with you?
They can get in contact with me, social media, Instagram. Like I will legit give my phone number out. I'm joking, kind of. Really not joking. I want to make sure like I get in contact with these people, and I want them to know that it's private. It's only between me and you. I'm not going to like go to my friends like, did you see this person? I'm showing them my text message from them. No, it's just going to stay between me and you. Because like I want to get in contact with these people. I want to get their perspective on things. I want to build not one single community, but communities for these individuals. Definitely, like on my Instagram or my Facebook, definitely message me.
And I'll have the details on that in the show notes, but why don't you give us your Instagram account name?
It's bubblegum_bitch. The L and the I are both ones.
Oh my lord, girlfriend.
Yeah, I know. It's so, but
I'll just
like
put it
I'm
in the
really
show notes
proud.
because it'll be hard to do.
Yeah, I'm very proud of it though. It like took me 20 minutes, but I'm just like, I'm doing all this work and this is my Instagram name.
So let me ask you one final question.
Yeah.
What do you hope to get out of working with people of other faiths on trying to connect the LGBTQIA plus community with the faith communities?
So one thing I hope to come out of this will be to show people that they are not limited in any way. Because like as people, we're intersectional beings. We have a lot of aspects that make us who we are. And I feel like in society we have to like pick one of the aspects that are more appealing over the others. And I want to prevent that. I want everyone to accept all the aspects that make them who they are. I want them to learn how to balance it and have spaces where they just feel like they can happily exist. Like at the end of the day, I want people to have the feeling of wholeness. I want them to feel whole, like they feel complete. And that's what I hope that with the work with Daz and Mace and everyone who has helped me so far that I can do.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for being a guest on the show today. And if you guys have any other comments or insight or input or want to come back and talk to me about some of the work that you've been doing on the queer Muslim community and share any success stories, hit me up. Let me know. And I'm glad to have you guys back on the air. It was a fascinating conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Thanks for listening to Be the Bridge. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love a positive rating and review on iTunes. I appreciate your support and feedback. For more details, visit brianpaytonjoyner.com or follow me on Facebook or Twitter. The links are in the show notes. Have a great week. And as my grandpa used to say, if you live life by your own rules, you're gonna be okay.